All right, so Jimmy Hoffa, right? I mean, you hear that name and it's like instant intrigue.
Oh, absolutely.
Like this guy, he just vanishes off the face of the earth.
Just gone, yeah.
And everyone's got a theory, right? But this deep dive, we're tackling one that's, well, it's a little out there.
It's a doozy.
We're talking about the possibility of him taking a dirt nap under Giants Stadium.
It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
But, okay, before we get to Hoffa potentially hanging out under the end zone, we got to rewind a bit.
Sure.
For those who maybe missed a history lesson or two, who was Jimmy Hoffa? And why are we still talking about him decades later?
Well, calling him just a union leader doesn't really paint the whole picture.
Right, he was a big deal.
Back in the 50s and 60s, Hoffa was the Teamsters Union.
Powerful stuff.
One of the biggest unions in the U.S., tons of influence, you name it.
Fighting for the little guy, better wages, all that.
Exactly.
And you knew there was a but coming.
Oh, always.
It wasn't all sunshine and roses with Hoffa, was it?
Not quite, no. You see, this was also the time when organized crime had its fingers in a lot of pies.
And the Teamsters weren't exactly immune.
Let's just say Hoffa knew how to play both sides.
And those dealings, they eventually caught up with him.
They did.
Lands him in prison in the 60s, bribery, fraud, the whole 9 yards.
Right, but then Nixon commutes his sentence in 71.
And Hoffa's back, ready for round 2.
And he had one thing on his mind, getting back control of the Teamsters.
Which I'm guessing didn't sit too well with some folks.
The mafia wasn't too keen on having him rock the boat. They'd gotten pretty comfortable in the driver's seat while he was away.
So you've got this recipe for disaster, basically.
A powder keg, you could say.
Hoffa, with a point to prove. The mob, not wanting to give up an inch of power, and then, boom, July 30th, 1975.
What happened?
Hoffa goes to meet some people at a restaurant near Detroit.
The Bacchus Red Fox, right?
The one and only
vanished. Poof.
Like a ghost.
The case has captivated people ever since.
It's the ultimate unsolved mystery. I mean, come on, it's like something out of a crime novel.
It really is. And of all the theories out there about what happened to Hoffa...
And there are a lot.
Oh, yeah.
This one, the Giant Stadium theory, it takes the cake.
It captures the imagination like no other.
So picture this, right? It's 1975. Hoffa disappears.
Gone without a trace.
And just a year later, what starts happening?
Construction on Giant Stadium, massive project.
Huge. I mean, we're talking thousands of workers, tons of concrete, steel, the whole shebang.
The perfect cover, some might say.
And people started talking, right? I mean, it makes sense.
All the rumors were flying.
It's like the perfect recipe for conspiracy.
A missing person, a brand new stadium, it all just kind of fit together.
And then, to add fuel to that fire, in walks Donald, Tony the Greek, Franco's.
In 1989,
this guy, a former mob hitman,
claims he knows where Hoffa is.
Buried under Section 107 of the stadium, stuffed in a drum, covered in concrete.
Talk about a bombshell.
It's like something out of a movie, right?
Straight out of Hollywood.
But here's the thing. We gotta look at this logically, too.
Of course.
Even if we just entertain this idea for a second.
Okay.
Logistically speaking, how on earth do you pull that off?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
We're talking about a massive construction project, people everywhere.
Eyes everywhere, you'd think.
And you're gonna bury a body discreetly in the middle of that.
Not exactly subtle.
Not the mafia style at all.
They preferred to keep things quiet.
Effective.
In and out, no fuss.
So this whole Giant Stadium burial, I mean, it seems a little far-fetched.
Logistically, it's a tough one to swallow.
But let's say, for argument's sake, that somehow they managed it.
All right, let's say they did.
Fast forward to 2010, the stadium's being demolished.
Big moment.
You'd think if Hoffa was down there, that would've been it, right? Case closed.
The whole world would have watched.
But guess what?
No Hoffa.
Not a trace.
Just concrete and steel.
So if not Giant Stadium, then where? It's the question that's haunted folks for decades.
If not there, then where?
I mean, he's got to be somewhere, right?
It's not like the guy just vanished into thin air.
Although it kind of feels that way.
Well, thankfully, there's no shortage of other theories out there.
Oh, we love a good theory.
One of the more popular ones involves a good old-fashioned burial.
6 feet under.
Exactly. But not just anywhere. We're talking about a specific field in Michigan.
Michigan, huh? So, back to where Hoffa was last seen.
Makes sense, right?
Yep.
Keep things close to home, less room for error.
And the Detroit Mafia, they weren't exactly strangers to taking care of business.
Let's just say they knew how to make things disappear.
And people have looked, right, like actually gone out with shovels and everything.
Oh yeah, every few years there's a new tip, a new search party. convinced they've cracked the code.
Any love so far?
More dirt than anything, I'm afraid.
Speaking of making things disappear, what about the incineration theory?
Now that's a theory that aligns with the mafia's MO.
Clean, efficient, no body, no problem.
Exactly. We're talking about a level of disposal that leaves virtually no trace.
And rumors point to a specific incinerator, right?
One said to be under the mob's thumb in New Jersey.
New Jersey, Michigan. It's like we're playing a morbid game of connect the dots.
And let's not forget the theories about landfills and bodies of water.
So many options, so little time.
It's part of what makes this case so fascinating. There's just enough mystery, enough intrigue to keep us guessing.
It's like a real-life whodunit, with the stakes amplified.
You've got organized crime, powerful figures, a disappearance that's shrouded in secrecy.
Like something out of a movie.
Exactly. And the fact that it's still unsolved after all these years just adds to the allure.
But why do you think we're still so drawn to the giant stadium theory?
Honestly, I think it's the story. It's just too good not to be true.
I get it's like a modern-day myth, right?
Buried treasure, but instead of gold, it's a legendary union boss.
Underneath a football field, it's wild.
It's the kind of story that captures the imagination, even if, deep down, we know it's probably not true.
So here we are, decades later, still no closer to knowing what really happened to Jimmy Hoffa.
Some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved, I suppose.
But hey, even without all the answers, this deep dive has been one wild ride.
It makes you think, though, what really happened.
Maybe one day the truth will come out, but until then, it's fun to speculate.
Absolutely, and that's half the fun, isn't it?
It keeps us on our toes, keeps those wheels turning.
That's what a good mystery does.
So what do you say we go grab a slice and steer clear of any stadiums while we're at it?
Sounds like a plan to me.